Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1725, written by Grumbles to Internet. The night Kilroy came, a tale of fear and fame. I was about 9. I was camping in a camper with my elder cousin, 12, and younger cousin, 6, and my grandparents. We were in a very isolated camping spot in Appalachia. It was off an old logging trail, literally in the middle of nowhere. This would have been around 1990. It had just gotten dark. We kids were huddled up on a little pull-out bed, watching a movie on a portable little TV hooked to a VCR. I'll never forget it. We were watching The Goonies. My grandpa had just gone to bed in the back of the camper, and my grandma was just waiting for the movie, which was almost over, to go to bed. All of a sudden, the power went out. I'm not sure why, but my grandma didn't seem worried. We had lanterns lit anyway, but no more movies, and we were bummed. Then all of the sounds of nature stopped. No crickets. We went from complaining about the movie to being scared silent. My grandma came to our pull-out bed and hugged us. That's when the squeaky camper door flew open and slapped the outside of the camper. In walked a dirty, smelly man. He was crazy looking. Wild eyes, scraggly beard, ruined clothes all torn and filthy. He smelled like a wild animal and cigarettes. He looked impossibly old, thin as a scarecrow, almost literally, like impossibly thin. He must have been almost just a skeleton under all the layers of soiled clothes. He stared right at my grandma for a few minutes, totally silently, and she hugged us tighter. I kept praying my grandpa would awake behind him with a shotgun and save us. But he somehow just kept sleeping. All you could hear was a snore. The man said, "I made a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Tell Tommy Kilroy was here," and then kept staring at us. I literally peed myself right there and then, and I wasn't the only one. All of us kids did. My grandma said, "I promise I will." He kept staring at us, and I was sure we were going to die. He reached up and pushed his right eyeball into his head. It kinda squished around his finger and fluid came out. "I'm keeping an eye on you, Agnes." My grandma's named Agnes. He then walked out and the door squealed back closed. We were shivering and wet and starting to cry together when the movie came back on. Seemingly incredibly loud after the silence, and we all screamed until my grandpa woke up. I remember my grandma telling him Kilroy was here, and him getting so white and pale, asking if all the kids were still here, which caused my grandma to frantically come back to us and hug it all over again. I don't remember anything else until morning. I thought it was a dream, but I had different underwear on, and the bed had new sheets and blankets. Our peed-on stuff was all in a hamper, and I was so scared all over. I asked about the night, and nobody remembered, except my youngest cousin, who asked if we really peed the bed together. She thought it was hilarious. My grandparents would hush us up angrily or hurriedly if we brought it up. When my little cousin asked who Kilroy was, my grandfather looked scared, making us promise not to say that until we were home, but we never talked about it again. I strangely forgot all about it for years until one day, I was looking through a book at the library and saw a picture in it of World War II graffiti saying, "Kilroy was here." And it appeared again in my mind all at once. I have no idea what happened or why, and my grandparents are long gone. He knew my grandparents' names, whatever he was. Case answer file 1725. The night Kilroy came, a tale of fear and fame. Back in the day, I watched 7 Days and 6 Nights, an old classic 90s movie, or might be 80s, but I think it's 90s, on a VCR, in a little camper that my dad had set up behind a house that he was working to build with his brother. And for some reason, that's one of my favorite memories of all time. It's just the vibe. The vibe was everything. The vibe was there. It was camping. The home wasn't built yet. My dad was staying in a different camper, so it was all to me. And yeah, just cozy and fun environment. I like that. Maybe the fondness of that memory is why I so desperately want a homestead and just build an off-grid cabin. There is so much appeal in that. And then watch 7 Days and 6 Nights. The first night I'm there. But this encounter would definitely freak me the hell out, especially as a kid growing up. I think it might have been a spirit that was bound to your grandpa. Maybe something to do with World War II. Maybe your grandpa killed this man. And he was just a soldier, some young boy conscripted in the war and didn't know you until now. Though if that's the case, how did he know about Agnes? I mean, can ghosts do research? I suppose they could, or just spy on you before making a manifested appearance. Or maybe your grandma was even a medic in the war. I don't know. The eyeball scene as you described it, pushing it back in, the sound it would make, oh my god. That is so disturbing. And if spirits can manifest to that extent, where the physical matter can be interacted with themselves, oh boy. That is another level entirely. Though the other thing to speculate on is, it was some kind of supernatural creature that was able to read your mind, the mind of your grandma and grandpa, and replicate something that would tether from their past. But it was a real creature. And I guess in that case, it would just be a creature that wants to terrorize and not necessarily eat you. Which is the better kind of creature. Barely. Case file number 1726, written by Character 2, 7232. The Wandering Bit, a tale of the little folks' wit. A couple years ago, I was trying to install some floating shelves in my living room. The wall is hollow and needs anchors. I was using a handheld screwdriver with a detachable magnetic flathead bit to try and gently work the anchor into the wall. The screwdriver was from one of those little simple IKEA toolkits that comes with a hammer, pliers, a bare screwdriver with a bunch of detachable magnetic screwdriver heads that sit in a row for storage. Well, the hole opened up more than I anticipated. The flathead bit got stuck in the anchor and both fell into the wall. This was very clear as I pulled back the screwdriver and found it with no head. I remember cussing about it and grabbing a flashlight to see if I could fish them out. But alas, they were gone. I also very clearly saw the row of screwdriver bits with one flathead missing. It made my OCD flare. I even remember wondering if or where I could buy a single replacement. The toolkit is like $10, so really not a huge loss, but annoyingly hard to replace single bits as a result. Fast forward 2 or 3 weeks. My friend is over helping with a project in the garage. We were installing hooks and shelves on the walls for tools. I was assessing before starting. I had the power drill, but also wanted to grab the toolkit from inside just to have extra stuff on hand. I haven't touched it since the floating wall installation. I pulled the IKEA toolkit from the drawer it lives in and popped it open, since I wanted to check out which bits I might need. Everything was in place. I looked at the row of screwdriver bits, and the freaking flathead bit is there. Like nothing had ever happened. I'm just slack-jawed. My friend who was helping me that day is Ojibwe, and told me it's the little people. Ojibwe culture recognizes little people, who are very similar to the ones from Irish and Scandinavian lore. He suggested I start leaving them gifts like hard candies, tiny shiny objects as a thank you, which I actually did. For me, it definitely felt very glitch in the Matrix. To this day, it blows my mind. What do you all think? Case file 1726, The Wandering Bit, a tale of the little folks' wit. Yeah, I understand the OCD inclination, I'm the same way. If something has a spot, then it needs to be in that spot, and if I lose it, it never feels complete, and I'll even want to go buy another one just to make sure things are back in proper order. It's that, I guess, when you realize you don't have total control of the world, the universe, well, you want to act on the things you do have control over, if that makes any sense. And so, I can't affect what's going to happen tomorrow, the weather, the events of the world, but I can control where things are placed in my home. That matters. I think that's what's going on in my brain. Most people who like to have things just so neat. It's trying to push back against the chaos of the world, just a little bit. But I guess sometimes the universe just shouts, no! And then the Ojibwe idea of a little folk, did they end up taking the candy that you placed out? If it was little folk or maybe spirits of some kind? Curious. Now time for the quote of the day. I know you have received orders from our commandant, which he has received from his superiors, to dispose of the population of this camp. Now would be the time to do it. Here they are. They're all here. This is your opportunity. Or you could leave and return to your families as men instead of murderers. Oskar Schindler. Okay, so obviously a quote from one of the best movies ever made. It's not an entertaining movie. It's a masterpiece in documenting and displaying human nature and sometimes some rare sparks in the world that fight against it, even when it's extremely risky for them. You gotta love it. You gotta hate it and love it, actually. Yeah. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.